Well, good morning, Minister, and it's great to be with you today. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you on a number of topics, and we've gathered a few questions.
Excellent.
So our conference theme, creativity, agility and legacy, has been the focus for keynote and workshop presenters this week. We also have many aspiring leaders with us today. So, in your opinion, what makes a highly effective school leader, and how did you come to this view?
Well, thanks, Dennis. And look, firstly, thank you for the opportunity, and to all of the delegates present. I hope you're having a wonderful conference. I'm really sorry that I can't be there with you, but thrilled that you're providing this opportunity for us to examine some issues in person here with you, Dennis, and sharing that with those at the conference. Now, I think in terms of highly effective leadership in the school environment, there are both some tangibles, some measurables, and some intangibles that I observe as I go around. There are the things you can quantify, if you like, in terms of the ability to plan, to measure, to assess, to be able to really set clear targets for where you want to take a school or a part of that school, how it is you're going to ensure that the staff, the students, the school community broadly are taking those steps, and to really continuously benchmark against that. But then, of course, there's all of the other aspects of how you actually motivate people, inspire them, provide that type of leadership. And they're the things that we know, whether it's in classroom or in leadership roles, are so essential, but are also so much harder to quantify or measure, but that we need to make sure we bring those attributes out in school leaders and right across school communities.
Great. Well, we've seen the passing of the Education Amendment Act 2017. APA supported the recommendation for the establishment of an independent body to review how funding is determined. The use of SES particular has been questioned. What challenges does the Commonwealth have in ensuring every school receives the funding required to meet the needs of their students?
Firstly, there's the challenge of transition. The fact that this is still a 10-year process to get away from decades of historical deals and special arrangements and to transition everybody onto a common platform. And that is a 10-year transition process. Those who are receiving increased support and increased funding, which are the vast majority of schools and systems, see that escalation happen over 6 years. Those who are transitioning down see that happen over a 10-year horizon. But that is one of the challenges. So this still takes a little while to be implemented, but we now have set in legislation a path to do that, which will be equitable, consistent, fair across the country. Then yes, you reflect upon the fact that there's a challenge to ensuring that it is the best possible model for funding that it can be. Now, I've always acknowledged that there should be continuous improvement to this, and the new National School Resourcing Body will be able to ensure there's that continual improvement, starting with looking at the SES. Now, the SES methodology has been used for a long time in relation to school funding. It's not something new, and in broad terms it is a pretty good tool and measure. But I accept there are some legitimate arguments, particularly in some instances, which a review will assess those arguments and will hopefully come up with a pathway and a process for the future that ensures the data, the approach that's used, etc., has confidence of everybody, because it's through that confidence of everybody that we can have a school funding model applied nationally that hopefully people do see as robust and fair.
Right, yes, and there's been plenty of discussion regarding low-fee non-government schools and the capacity of some school communities to contribute. So under the new model, what do you see as the future for these schools?
Look, our government's approach is very much one of wanting to empower parents to make a choice, and that for all of the school leaders assembled there, whether you're from the government sector or the non-government sector, we absolutely respect the work that you do and the choice that your school communities make to engage in your school environment. In the non-government space, the ambition is to provide the greatest support to those school communities who can least afford it. That's to ensure that choice is there for people if they want a faith-based education or otherwise. And that's the point, in a sense, of an SES type model, to steer the greater levels of government funding to those non-government school communities who can least afford it, just as the needs-based funding model overall we've applied ensures that schools who need extra help get extra help. Now ultimately, we want to make sure there's confidence, as I said, in that SES approach. And if we have confidence in it, then people should know that the support is there for low fee schools to exist, particularly to exist in supporting communities who would otherwise not be able to access that choice in their education.
Primary principals know early investment or resourcing has been shown to lead to better educational outcomes. So how do we get this early and sustained message acted upon?
I think we've already seen some changes. Even the analysis for the school funding reforms we did saw that in recent years there's been a bit of a bump up of investment in the primary years relative to the secondary years. And so we can see that schools and systems, in having increased resourcing that's flowed in recent years, have directed a bit more of that into the primary years. And it's important to acknowledge that that change is there. But I think as we continually talk about, well, how do we build across the different pillars of student success and student learning, the basics and fundamentals around literacy and numeracy and the building blocks, the technical skills in the STEM disciplines or STEAM, and then of course the whole person attributes to ensure their success in society and workforce capabilities and so forth. And really those first ones, that first pillar that is so essential to nail in the primary years, where we also know that we have some challenges in literacy, numeracy areas. That's where I think increasing policy time, focus, will have a look at what else needs to happen in those primary years to help build those capabilities, to ensure that the hardworking school leaders that are your members, the hardworking teachers alongside them, are getting the support, the tools, the resources to know that what they're applying, what they're giving to their students is the best possible program for their success.
Another very important topic is principal health and wellbeing, and APA's just completed a report and survey called Back in Balance. The preliminary copy's there, and also we have a national statement which states that increasing work demands, excessive accountability, compliance requirements and unrealistic expectations on schools should not be at the expense of principals' health, mental or emotional wellbeing. So what role can you and the federal government play in addressing what is a growing concern out there in our schools?
APA's done some fabulous work in this space before, and I really welcome this report and this statement on principal health and wellbeing. My view is that, firstly, actually raising awareness of these issues is in many ways the most important initial critical step, and so APA's led the way there, and as governments collectively, the Commonwealth working in partnership with states and territories and the non-government authorities, we really do need to heed this message and think about how do we better support principals and school leaders to succeed, to ensure that administrative burdens are not overly complex or unnecessary, to streamline that back where possible, and to play a leading role in terms of community expectation, that the view that a school leader and a principal in a school can fix and solve all ills is something that is plaguing many schools and school communities. And again, APA has played a leading role, I think, in pushing back at times and saying, well, not everything and every social ill has a place on the national curriculum, that we need to focus on getting those basics right. There are many other pressures on the curriculum to ensure a educationally healthy, emotionally healthy, physically healthy child grows through their primary years into their secondary school. So working with parents and the community to understand the limitations is important too. I also hope, having passed the school funding reforms through the Parliament, one of the great ambitions of the further review we have David Gonski doing at present is to shift elements of the school education debate. That for too long, frankly, debate around education policy in Australia has centred a lot on funding to the exclusion of other attributes. And what's important for us to do is to recognise that funding is essential. Without it, nobody can successfully do anything. So having a fair and struggling with my words here, but having a fair and robust and an equivalent amount of funding that ensures needs are met in schools is essential. But how that is used, how we ensure we support schools to get the most out of it, is even more important in many ways. And the debate and discussion we should be able to have now should focus on all of those different attributes that I hope the Gonski panel will look at. I'd encourage APA members across the country to engage with that, to make submissions, to be a party to that process, and to ensure that the views and the priorities that principals put in place, including in relation to wellness and wellbeing, are well considered in that.
Yeah, and we're also talking with principals about their own personal health and wellbeing and role modelling. So on a personal level, how do you manage your own personal health and wellbeing? Any tips?
It's tricky. I'm like many people and many of your principals, I'm sure. Dad to a couple of young children, busy job, lots of different competing pressures that come in different waves as well. For me, whether Parliament's sitting or not sitting, for you and your colleagues, whether school's in session or out of session, the priorities are different, but the pressures are constant. I find that having a clear sense of what the priorities are at any given point in time is essential, but also making time, particularly for those personal things. When I'm at home, making time for family. When I'm in Canberra, making a little bit of time for physical exercise, just to clear the head, just to actually ensure I've got time to quietly think myself about the day that's ahead and the priorities that are there. But it's not easy for anybody in busy leadership roles, even classroom teachers, in preparing day in, day out, and knowing that every day there's a group of young children there who are expecting certain things, expecting to be engaged, expecting to get feedback, expecting the type of personal contact that is part of our wonderful education system nowadays. The pressures are never ending. Taking that personal time to occasionally step back and ensure you're looking after yourself is, I guess, essential message.
A good message, yeah. I mean, our conversation today reinforces our view that school leadership is critical and cannot be left to chance. So what can the government do, say, over the next 5 years to support the development of current and future leaders who are sitting with us in primary schools across Australia?
I think some great steps have been taken with the establishment of the principal standards, work by AITSL, and further work that AITSL is now going to undertake in looking at the leadership framework in Australian schools, not just about principals, but about the overall leadership framework, which I hope will include a clear look at how we establish pre-principal certification arrangements to help to ensure that not only do we have an adequate supply of future principals, which is one of the challenges that systems face, but also that there is a greater sense of preparedness of people when they step into the principal's position, that having that confidence from day one that there's a good level of grounding and understanding of the job and the challenges that lie ahead is an important part of preparation for anybody. I'm sure, like any new job, nothing can prepare you for everything that you will face.
True.
And there's always going to be a strong element of learning on the job, but doing more in the earlier years to set good career pathways to keep our best and brightest in schools, and to see leadership positions that they can pursue, whether it's moving into principal positions or whether it's providing pedagogical leadership in other ways in a school community or the like. These are different pathways that we need to create in a way that the profession values, welcomes and embraces, and perhaps changes a dynamic of an old model when we had a less dynamic workforce out there that saw people less likely to move in and out of different professions than they certainly are today.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mister. I think our time has crept away from us, and thank you for appreciate the opportunity to hear from you today, and we look forward to our next conversation, which might be soon or down the track, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis, and look, thank you to APA for the way in which you engage with government, the constructive approach. I've certainly enjoyed the different roundtable and fora that I've had the chance to address, and hopefully next year we can make sure that the diary allows me to be at the conference in person. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.